Clara's point of view.
I stood in the middle of the living room, the volume of 3 screaming kids creating a chaotic symphony that felt like it might shatter my sanity. The din was almost enough to make my ears ring. Amid the chaos, one of the kids, a little girl with a wild mop of curls, shouted at me with an urgency that made me flinch. "Come on, bitch! I need to pee!" she yelled, her face red and contorted with frustration. I let out a heavy sigh, muttering to myself, "Calm down, Clara. You've seen way worse than this, and you can get through it again." I tugged on a smile, trying to mask the exhaustion that was creeping into my bones. With a practiced calmness, I made my way to the little girl, bending down to her level. "All right, sweetheart, let's get you to the toilet," I said, trying to keep my tone soothing. As I closed the bathroom door behind her, I took a deep breath, my mind already shifting to the long shift I had ahead at the bar. The chaos of the evening was far from over, but I knew I'd face it with the same resilience that had seen me through so many other nights. As soon as the girl finished, I heard her yell from the bathroom, "Hey bitch, I'm done." I clenched my jaw, my hands tightening into fists at my sides. I wasn't even sure where these kids had picked up such language, but it was starting to wear on me. I took another deep breath, reminding myself to stay calm as I opened the door. "All right, let's get you cleaned up," I said, keeping my voice as level as possible despite the frustration gnawing at me. I helped her wash her hands and wiped her face, silently praying for patience. When we were done, I led her back to the living room, the noise from the other 2 kids still echoing in the background. Once we were in the living room, I dropped down to her eye level, placing my hands on her small shoulders. "Listen, sweetie," I said firmly but softly. "What you just said to me wasn't good. You need to apologize." Her face scrunched up immediately, and she crossed her arms, stamping her foot for good measure. "No!" she yelled, her little voice filled with anger. "I won't!" I closed my eyes for a brief moment, murmuring under my breath, "This is exactly why I didn't want to take this job." Opening my eyes, I looked at her sternly. "I don't know where you learned to talk like that, but it's not okay," I said, my voice sharper now, though I kept it calm. "Calling people names, especially grown-ups, is disrespectful, and it has to stop." Her lips pressed into a pout, but I didn't let up. "You think it's funny or cool to act like this, but it's not. One day you're going to say something like that to the wrong person, and it's not going to end well. If you want to be treated with kindness and respect, you need to give it too. Got it?" The girl's face twisted, and before I knew it, she burst into tears, loud, wailing cries that echoed through the entire room. Her sobs were quickly joined by her 2 siblings who seemed to take their cue from her. The sound was unbearable, and my head throbbed as I tried to figure out how to calm them down. Before I could do anything, the front door swung open, revealing their mother, her eyes wide with panic as she rushed in. "What's going on here?" she demanded, her voice sharp with concern. Her gaze flicked between her screaming children and me. "What did you do to my kids?" she snapped, her tone accusing before I even had a chance to explain. I opened my mouth, trying to form the words to defend myself, but the little girl, still sniffling, beat me to it. "She said people don't like me because I'm a bad kid," she cried, her voice quivering with false innocence. My jaw dropped. "Wait, that's not what I—" Before I could finish, the woman's hand shot out, and I felt a sharp sting across my cheek. The slap was so sudden and fierce that my vision blurred for a second. My hand instinctively went to my face, my skin burning where she'd hit me. I stumbled backward, shocked and reeling, but before I could protest, she grabbed my arm roughly and shoved me toward the door. "This is exactly why I don't like black people," she spat, her voice dripping with disdain. "You're all the same, annoying and trouble." I was too stunned to respond. My heart pounded in my chest, a mix of humiliation and fury bubbling inside me, but words failed me. She stormed back inside, grabbing my handbag and jacket. She threw them at me, her face twisted with contempt. "Get off my property before I call the police on you," she barked, her voice as cold as ice. The door slammed shut behind me, and I found myself standing outside, dazed, my cheek still stinging from the slap. Through the window, I saw the little girl smile at me. A cruel, satisfied grin that made my stomach turn. Eagle! I sank down onto the ground, my hands trembling as I let out an awkward laugh, disbelieving. What on earth just happened? I muttered to myself, still in shock. The laughter felt wrong, hollow, but it was all I had in that moment as I sat there, stunned and utterly blindsided by how quickly everything had spiraled out of control. I sat there for a moment longer, letting the absurdity of the situation settle in. Then, with a deep breath, I pulled myself together and stood up, brushing off the dirt from my pants. Just as I got to my feet, a sudden rush of freezing water hit me from behind, drenching me. The sharp, pungent smell made me gag. It wasn't just water, it reeked of urine. I spun around to see who had done it, but all I caught was the sound of a door slamming shut from the next door. A shaky breath escaped my lips as I tried to swallow the anger and disgust that welled up inside me. You've got to be kidding me, I muttered under my breath. I clenched my fists, forcing myself not to cry, refusing to break. Instead, I straightened up, ignoring the damp, foul-smelling clothes clinging to my skin, and started walking toward the nearest bus stop. As soon as I stepped onto the bus, I felt the stares. People wrinkled their noses, some even scooting away from me as if I were carrying the plague. The bus driver glanced at me in the rearview mirror and sighed heavily. Miss, I'd appreciate it if you caught another bus. You're disturbing the other passengers. My heart sank. The humiliation stung worse than the slap I had. Nodding slightly, I stepped off the bus, feeling the weight of everyone's eyes on me until the doors closed behind me. I decided to hail a cab instead, hoping for better luck. But every driver who stopped took one look at me, then the smell, and drove off without a word. The rejection was relentless. After the third cab zoomed off, I wrapped my coat tightly around myself, blocking the worst of the smell, and started walking. By the time I finally made it to my apartment, my feet were sore, my muscles aching, and I was shivering uncontrollably. It was late, and I could barely stand, but I knew I didn't have the luxury of rest. I still had a night shift at the bar to get to. I rushed into the bathroom, peeling off the filthy clothes as fast as I could. The hot water stung against my cold skin, but it was a relief nonetheless. I scrubbed myself clean, trying to wash away not just the smell, but the bitterness of the entire day. Once I was done, I dressed in my usual black jeans and a crop top, my work uniform of sorts. I grabbed a jacket, checking the time. I was running late, but I could still make it if I hurried. I called for a taxi, and this time, thankfully, one stopped for me. When the taxi finally pulled up to the bar, I exhaled in relief. I fumbled in my pocket, quickly paying the driver before dashing out, ignoring the slight ache in my feet. I was already late, and I couldn't afford to lose this job. Not with everything that had happened today. I pushed the door open, the familiar low hum of chatter and clinking glasses greeting me as I stepped inside. Before I could even take a breath, my boss's voice cut through the noise, sharp and unforgiving. This isn't your father's business, Miss Clara, for you to show up whenever you feel like it, he snapped, his face a mixture of annoyance and anger. He stood behind the bar, arms crossed, glaring at me as if I had personally insulted him. I'm sorry, Save it. He waved his hand dismissively, not bothering to hear my excuse. 200 is off from your pay this week. I opened my mouth to protest, to explain, but he didn't give me a chance. He thrust a tray full of beer glasses toward me, the liquid sloshing dangerously close to the rim. Take that to table 16, he barked before turning his back on me. I nodded, biting my tongue as I grabbed the tray. The weight of it was heavier than I expected, and I had to adjust my grip, trying to balance the glasses as I made my way across the crowded bar. My feet were still sore, and I could feel the exhaustion creeping in, but I kept my head down, focusing on the task at hand. I could see table 16 in the distance, a group of rowdy men laughing loudly, their voices carrying over the other conversations. But just as I got closer, I felt my foot catch on something. A chair leg or maybe the edge of a rug, I wasn't sure. My heart skipped a beat as I stumbled forward, the tray tipping precariously. Before I could regain my balance, everything went flying. Glasses shattered against the floor, beer splashing everywhere, drenching the men at the table. A chorus of gasps and curses erupted as the men jumped up, beer dripping from their shirts and faces. One of the men, a tall, muscular guy with tattoos snaking up his arms, glared at me, his face twisted in anger. "What the hell?" he shouted, brushing beer off his leather jacket. His friends quickly followed suit, each of them staring at me as if I'd just committed an unforgivable crime. "I'm so sorry," I stammered, dropping to my knees to pick up the broken glass. My hands shook as I tried to gather the pieces, the sharp edges digging into my fingers. The sting of a cut on my palm was nothing compared to the humiliation washing over me in waves. The guy grabbed me by the arm, his grip like iron, yanking me to my feet as if I weighed nothing. His dark eyes blazed with fury, the intensity in them making my heart pound in my chest. "This isn't over," he growled, dragging me toward his table despite my attempts to pull away. He was too big, too strong, and I was no match for him. Panic surged through me, irritation mixing with the fear crawling up my spine. "Let go of me," I snapped, my voice trembling as I tried to wrestle my arm free, but his grip only tightened. My hand instinctively tightened around the shard of glass I'd picked up earlier, my knuckles turning white. Without thinking, I jabbed it into his thigh, hoping the shock or pain would force him to release me. But he didn't even flinch. I looked up at him, my breath hitching in my throat, eyes wide with disbelief. How could he not feel that? The anger in his eyes only deepened, his face twisting into something darker, more menacing. A storm brewing beneath the surface. My pulse raced as fear wrapped itself around my chest, tightening with each passing second. I glanced around the bar, searching desperately for help. My eyes landed on a few of the other customers, but they barely spared us a second glance. They had turned back to their drinks, laughing and talking as if nothing unusual was happening. Watching a defenseless woman get manhandled in the middle of a bar seemed like a regular occurrence to them. "No one's coming to help you, sweetheart," he said, his voice dripping with malice. His hand shot up, grabbing a fistful of my hair, yanking hard enough to make me cry out. Pain shot through my scalp, tears stinging my eyes. "Come on, bitch," he snarled, leaning close enough that I could smell the alcohol on his breath. "You're gonna pay for this." I whimpered, my voice barely audible through the lump in my throat. "I told you I'm sorry. It wasn't intentional." Before I could say more, a deep, hoarse voice cut through the noise of the bar. "Let her go." My heart skipped a beat as I strained to see who had spoken, but the man gripping me didn't even glance up. His grip on my hair tightened, and his sneer deepened. "Don't get into my business, Joe," he barked, his tone laced with warning as he tightened his grip on my hair. I clenched my jaw against the pain, biting back another cry. The voice from behind cut through the tension again, this time with an edge that was impossible to ignore. "You either let her go, or I'll make you. And believe me, I'd enjoy every second of it." There was a brief pause from my captor. With a low growl, he finally released me, letting me drop to the floor. The impact stung, but the relief of being free from his grasp was far more overwhelming. Before I could catch my breath, my boss stormed over. He didn't spare me a glance as he grabbed my arm forcefully, his fingers digging into my skin. "You need to come with me," he barked, his face twisted in anger. He didn't wait for a response, dragging me toward the door and straight outside. We stepped into the chilly night, and before I could catch my breath, he shoved my belongings into my arms, my bag, and jacket. "I don't ever want to see your face around my bar again," he snarled, his voice thick with fury. I stood there stunned, my heart racing as he turned to the security guard standing by the door. "Make sure she doesn't get back inside," he ordered. "She's done." Without another glance, my boss headed back inside, the door slamming shut behind him. I made my way back to my tiny apartment, my mind a whirlwind of emotions: anger, humiliation, fear. The moment I stepped inside, I collapsed onto my couch, my body sinking into the cushions as a bitter laugh escaped my lips. The sound was hollow, empty, and before I knew it, that laugh turned into a painful cry. Tears streamed down my face as the reality of the night hit me like a ton of bricks. Everything I'd been holding in, the frustration, the fear, the humiliation, all came pouring out. For a few moments, I let myself cry, feeling the release of it, the rawness of the emotions I'd tried so hard to hold back. Eventually, the sobs subsided, and I wiped my eyes with the back of my hand. My chest still ached, but the tears had brought some form of clarity. I got up from the couch and headed into the small bathroom, turning on the faucet to wash the blood off my hands. The cut from earlier stung as I rinsed it with water, and I winced, grabbing a small first aid kit from under the sink. With a shaky breath, I disinfected the wound and wrapped it in a bandage. As I headed into my bedroom, I started undressing, ready to put on my pajamas and call it a night. But as I stood naked in front of the mirror, something shifted in me. An idea sparked. My gaze drifted to the closet, landing on the black, tight dress my best friend Kevin had bought me for my 18th birthday. I'd never worn it, always thinking it was too bold, too daring for me. But tonight felt different. I pulled the dress out of the closet and slipped it on, surprised by how perfectly it fit even after 8 years. The fabric hugged my curves, and I stared at my reflection, seeing someone I didn't fully recognize, someone stronger, more confident, more determined. I did some quick touches on my face, running my fingers through my hair and smoothing out the tangles. A smile tugged at the corner of my lips, the weight of the night lifting ever so slightly. With a small, satisfied nod, I grabbed a bag from my dresser, adding my wallet, a paper spray, and my phone before slipping it over my shoulder. One last look in the mirror, and I was ready. I reached the entrance of one of the largest and most prestigious clubs in town. The neon lights above glowed brightly, illuminating the line of people waiting to get in. Music pulsed from inside, and I could feel the bass reverberating in my chest, even from where I stood. The bouncers, clad in all black, were imposing, standing tall with their arms crossed, scanning the crowd with hawk-like precision. I paused at the entrance, staring up at the grand front, taking in the energy of the place. A nervous flutter danced in my stomach, but I pushed it aside. Tonight wasn't about humiliation, fear, or hesitation. It was about doing something for me. For once. Something bold. I let out a heavy breath, gathering my courage, and took a step forward. As I approached the door, one of the bouncers sized me up, his eyes lingering on my tight black dress. For a moment, I thought he might turn me away. But instead, he gave me a curt nod, opening the velvet rope to let me through without a word. The instant I stepped inside, I was hit by the intense sound of music, the air thick with the scent of expensive cologne and alcohol. Bodies moved rhythmically on the dance floor under the shifting, colorful lights, a sea of people lost in the music, the night, and each other. I stood there for a second, taking it all in. The energy, the atmosphere, the intoxicating freedom of it all. A small smile tugged at my lips as I took my first step forward into the crowd, ready to leave the weight of the world outside those doors behind. This was my night. I weaved my way through the mass of bodies, the music vibrating through me with every step. The pulse of the beat made it easy to forget the sting of humiliation, the fear that had gripped me, and the suffocating anger that had lingered ever since. Here, none of it mattered. Here, I was invisible. But for the first time in what felt like forever, that didn't bother me. In fact, I welcomed it. As I made my way toward the bar, I felt eyes on me, curious glances and appreciative stares. It was strange. Usually that kind of attention made me feel vulnerable, like I needed to shrink into myself. But not tonight. Tonight, it felt empowering. I reached the bar and leaned against it, the cool surface a welcome contrast to the heat of the crowd. The bartender, a young guy with a shaved head and a tight red t-shirt, approached, giving me a quick once-over. "What can I get you, beautiful?" he asked, his voice barely audible over the pounding music. I hesitated for a second, considering my options. Something strong, I decided. Something to make the night feel a little lighter. "Whiskey neat," I said, surprising even myself. I hadn't ordered whiskey before. The bartender raised an eyebrow but didn't comment. Within seconds, he poured the amber liquid into a glass and slid it across the bar. I picked it up and took a slow sip, the burn of the alcohol spreading warmth through my chest. It was exactly what I needed, sharp and bold. As I took another slow sip of the whiskey, savoring the burn, a shadow fell over me. I glanced to my left as a very tall, broad-shouldered guy stepped up to the bar. He had a commanding presence, the kind that made people naturally move aside. His voice was low, deep, smooth, and familiar. "I'll take what she's having," he said, motioning to the bartender. I froze, the glass halfway to my lips. That voice, it sent a jolt through me. I glanced toward him, but I could only see the sharp, clean-cut line of his bearded jaw. The angles of his face were striking, almost too perfect. I stared for a moment, trying to place where I had heard that voice before. The familiarity of it gnawed at the back of my mind, but I quickly shook my head, brushing the thought aside. "No way, you're just imagining things." I brought the glass to my lips, and in a sudden burst of defiance gulped down the whiskey in one go. The liquid burned all the way down, stronger than I'd expected. I coughed, wincing as the heat spread through my chest, instantly regretting my decision. "Holy fuck," I muttered under my breath, shaking my head. That was not a good idea. The bartender gave me a bemused look as I slid my empty glass toward him. "Another shot," I demanded. Before he could even turn to grab the bottle, the guy beside me turned his head, a small amused smile playing on his lips. The sight of him made my breath catch. His features were even more striking up close. Strong jawline, deep-set blue eyes, and that perfectly groomed beard. He was hot. Like, out of my league kind of hot. My heart fluttered unexpectedly, and I felt a warmth rise to my cheeks that had nothing to do with the whiskey. "You all right?" he asked, his voice carrying a hint of concern despite the playful look in his eyes. I tried to brush it off, giving a half-hearted shrug. "Yeah, I'm fine," I lied, reaching for the new drink the bartender had placed in front of me. I lifted it to my lips, ready to down it like the first one. But before I could, the guy's hand shot out, gently snatching the glass away from me. "Take it easy," he said, holding the glass just out of my reach. His grin widened, a mix of amusement and something else, something that made my pulse quicken. I stared up at him, a little stunned by the audacity, but instead of being irritated, I found myself smirking back. "You're really gonna take my drink?" I challenged, raising an eyebrow. He shrugged, the playful glint never leaving his eyes. "Just looking out for you. You already seem a little tipsy." "Tipsy?" I scoffed, crossing my arms over my chest. But the truth was, he wasn't wrong. The room had started to spin just a little, and I could feel the whiskey working its way through me. As the night wore on, the guy and I fell into a surprisingly easy conversation, punctuated by sips of whiskey and occasional laughter. He seemed genuinely interested in what I had to say, and the way he looked at me made my heart race in a way I hadn't felt in a long time. The alcohol had loosened my inhibitions, and as I took another gulp of my drink, a thought bubbled to the surface. "Look, I'm just gonna be blunt," I said, my voice a bit slurred but steady. "Would you like to have sex with me?" The guy, whose name I still hadn't learned, raised an eyebrow, taking a slow sip of his drink without breaking eye contact. His gaze was steady and unflinching, and a small, knowing smile tugged at the corners of his mouth. He placed his glass down on the counter with deliberate care. "Be careful what you wish for, gorgeous," he said, his tone both teasing and serious. "I might just take you up on that." I was taken aback by his response, but a thrill of excitement ran through me. There was something so undeniably enticing about the way he spoke, the way his gaze lingered on me. I hadn't expected such a bold response, and yet it made me want to know him even more. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a wad of cash, laying it down on the bar to cover both of our drinks. The bartender gave him a nod of appreciation, and then took my hand, his grip warm and firm. I felt a shiver of excitement at the contact. "Let's get out of here," he said, his voice low and enticing as he guided me toward the exit. My heart raced with a mixture of excitement and trepidation, a silent prayer on my lips that this spontaneous decision wouldn't bring regret. I slowly opened my eyes, groaning as I squinted against the bright light streaming in. My head throbbed with every beat of my pulse, making me wince as I sat up, clutching my temples. The memories of last night began to trickle back, recalling a hot guy who I had shamelessly asked for sex. My cheeks flushed with shame, and I closed my eyes, hoping to erase the memory. When I finally gathered the courage to open my eyes again, I glanced over to where he had been. To my dismay, the bed was empty. I blinked in confusion, wondering where he had gone. An awkward laugh escaped my lips as I muttered, "Don't tell me he left." Sighing, I chided myself. "What did you expect? Did you think it was your wedding night? And on top of that, you're the one who asked him." Throwing off the covers, I walked to the bathroom. But just as I stepped inside, I realized with surprise that I was walking just fine. No pain, no discomfort. I walked back to the bedroom to double-check, and the sensation remained the same. Perplexed, I reached between my thighs, feeling fresh as if I hadn't been touched at all. A chuckle escaped me. Why didn't he do anything? I wondered aloud. My mind raced with a flurry of questions. Was I not to his liking? Was it because I'm black? Was it because I was a virgin? If so, why did he bring me to this expensive room? But if that was the case, I continued, he shouldn't have kissed me, right? I remember him kissing me so wildly, and then my thoughts began to blur as my memory of the rest of the night faded, and just as I was about to piece it together, a sharp sting on my shoulder made me jolt. I rushed to the bathroom mirror to inspect the source of the pain. At first glance, it looked like a hickey, but as I leaned in closer, I realized it was far more troubling. It was a deep, jagged wound that looked like it had been made by teeth, but not human teeth. My heart pounded as I stared at the mark on my shoulder. The wound was dark, inflamed, and completely unlike any typical hickey. It had an almost animalistic edge to it. My breath hitched, anxiety swirling inside me. What the hell happened last night? Suddenly, my phone rang, snapping me back to reality. I jumped, startled, and rushed to the bedroom. A quick glance at the mark sent another wave of unease through me. This wasn't normal. Kevin's name flashed on the screen, and I sighed, slumping onto the bed as I answered. "Hello?" I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Sexy lady, where the hell did you spend the night? No way you're at work." Kevin's voice boomed, leaving no room for a greeting. "Listen, girlfriend," I started, but she cut me off. "Don't tell me," she said, her voice full of disbelief. "You finally did it, didn't you?" "What are you even talking about?" I asked, feigning innocence. "Don't play innocent," she shot back, excitement bubbling in her tone. "Did you finally get laid?" I sighed, biting back a retort. "I get what you're saying, but I can't explain over the phone. Just wait for me." Before she could respond, I ended the call. I tossed the phone into my bag and hurriedly pulled on my clothes. As I stood fully dressed, I realized half my body was still exposed. Shoot, how am I going to walk around like this? As my eyes drifted around, my attention was drawn to the jacket lying at the side of the bed, partially covered by the sheets. It was unmistakably his. The hot guy's jacket. My heart raced as I reached for it, wondering if he had forgotten it or left it intentionally. Whatever the reason, I wasn't complaining. I grabbed the oversized jacket and slipped it on. It covered me entirely, falling past my knees, wrapping me in a lingering scent. earthy, smoky, and something I couldn't quite place. As his scent filled my senses, a sudden shiver raced down my spine. What the hell was that? I wondered, my pulse quickening. Zipping it up, I glanced around the room one last time to make sure I hadn't left anything. I cautiously stepped out of the room, wincing as the door clicked shut behind me. My heart pounded in my chest, and I practically tiptoed down the hallway, praying I wouldn't run into anyone. As I reached the lobby, I let out a relieved breath. The place was eerily quiet, just the way I needed it to be. I quickly crossed the lawn outside the hotel, and with a sigh of relief, I spotted no one lingering around. My body loosened slightly, the tension melting away as I rushed out toward the street. A taxi was conveniently passing by, and I flagged it down, sliding into the back seat without a word. The driver eyed me in the rearview mirror, but said nothing as I mumbled my address. The ride home was a blur, my mind still stuck on the events of last night, and that strange, feral mark on my shoulder. Before I knew it, the taxi pulled up outside my apartment building. I paid the driver, stepped out, and hurried inside. As soon as I opened the door to my apartment, I was greeted by the smell of coffee. My best friend Kevin sat in the living room, cradling a steaming mug. Her eyes flickered up to me, and before I could say anything, her face broke into a wide, mischievous grin. "Ah, sexy girl, you finally got laid," she crowed, grinning wildly as she set down her mug. "You're officially a grown-up woman now." I rolled my eyes, my face heating up. "It's not like that," I muttered as I kicked off my shoes. Kevin leaned forward, her grin growing wider. "Oh, come on. I can practically smell it. Spill it, Clara. Who was he?" I ignored her teasing and threw the jacket onto the couch. Kevin's eyes widened as her gaze lingered on my well-curved figure in the dress she got me 8 years ago. "Okay, now this is what I call an achievement." Her voice was loud, full of amusement. "We need to celebrate." He clapped her hands, making me shake my head. I dropped onto the couch, exhausted, while she grabbed the jacket, inspecting it closely. "Wait a second." She held it up, raising an eyebrow. "Did you sleep with a giant?" I burst into laughter, unable to help myself. "No, I don't even know who he is. It just happened." Kevin gasped dramatically, feigning shock. "You slept with a mystery man and didn't even get his number? Girl, I thought I raised you better." I rolled my eyes at her dramatic reaction. "Girlfriend, listen," I started, trying to find the right words, but she was already grinning like a Cheshire cat, clearly in full gossip mode. The truth is that the guy didn't even touch me. Her jaw dropped, and for a second she was completely stunned, staring at me like she hadn't heard me right. "What do you mean he didn't touch you?" Wait, let me get this straight," she said, her excitement almost infectious. "You didn't sleep with him? That's what you're trying to say?" I shook my head. "Yep." Kevin blinked, stunned, the excitement draining from her face. Her eyes flickered down to the jacket, then back up at me. She grabbed it, holding it up as if it held the answers. "Wait, are you saying the owner of this jacket?" I nodded, feeling a tinge of heat creeping up my neck. "Yep." Her hands froze midair, and the jacket slipped from her fingers, dropping onto the couch as she slowly sat down next to me. Her gaze locked onto mine, curiosity burning in her eyes. "Girl, I want the full story." I inhaled deeply, my pulse quickening as I prepared to explain. "Well, he did touch me, okay? He kissed me. And let me tell you, Kevin, he's a very, very good kisser," I admitted, a small shy smile tugging at my lips. "But he didn't have sex with me." Kevin's mouth dropped open in total disbelief, and she gulped dramatically, her hand flying to cover her mouth. "Wait, what? You're telling me that mystery man kissed you, you loved it, but nothing else happened?" "Exactly." I shrugged, feeling just as baffled as she looked. And I have no idea why, yet I was the one who asked him to sleep with me, and yet, nothing. Kevin threw her arms up dramatically, nearly knocking over the coffee table. "Okay, girl, now you've gone beyond my thinking. I personally cannot imagine asking a guy for sex, but you, Wow. Okay, enough, I said, clapping my hand over her mouth. That's enough. Don't throw it in my face. Kevin pried my hand off her mouth, her eyes still gleaming with intrigue. Fine, fine. But seriously, what reason did the guy give you when you asked him? He must have said something. The weird part is, when I woke up, he was gone. Didn't leave a note, nothing. Just vanished. Kevin raised an eyebrow, waiting for more. I shifted, showing her the mark on my shoulder. But that's not all. Look at this. I turned slightly for her to see it clearly. You can't tell me that is a hickey. It is more than just hickey. This is what I saw when I woke up, and I have no clue what it is. Kevin leaned forward, her eyes narrowing as she inspected the mark closely. I expected her to laugh, make a joke, or at least freak out, but she went dead silent. Her expression shifted, serious and thoughtful, and for the first time since I knew her, she looked almost scared. I stared at her, waiting for a response, but she just sat there, lost in thought. I gently tapped her arm. Kevin, hello? Where did your mind just go? She blinked, snapping out of it, and flicked her eyes up at me, but there was something off in her gaze. Oh, sorry, I was just thinking. Thinking about what? Do you know something about this mark? I asked, my curiosity piqued as I leaned closer. Kevin flicked her eyes to the mark again, then shook her head quickly, brushing off my question with a wave of her hand. No, I don't know anything about it. It's probably just a hickey, though. The guy must have been really wild, like accidentally bit you or something, she said. But there was a hesitation in her voice. I narrowed my eyes at her, sensing there was more she wasn't telling me. That's it? Do you think he bit me by accident? Yeah, maybe that's why he didn't sleep with you, she continued, forcing a laugh. He probably felt guilty about biting you and just bailed. I stared at her, unconvinced. Kevin, are you sure that's all it is? It looks a little more intense than just a regular bite. She shrugged, still avoiding my gaze. Look, sometimes guys get a little carried away, you know? It's probably nothing serious. Don't overthink it. I frowned, sensing there was more to the story, but before I could press her, she jumped up abruptly, knocking her coffee mug off the table. It clattered to the floor, spilling coffee across the carpet. I glanced down at the spilt coffee and up at my friend. I noticed something was off. She looked unsteady, almost nervous. Kevin, are you okay? I asked, concerned by her sudden shift in mood. Without answering, she darted into the bedroom and returned with her small bag slung over her shoulder, moving hastily. I just remembered, I've got a part-time job. Gotta run. Wait, what? You didn't mention? I started, but she was already at the door, fumbling with the handle. I'll talk to you later, she called, not even looking back as she stormed out, the door slamming shut behind her. Confused, I stood up to follow her, but the moment I did, an intense throbbing pain erupted in my head. I clutched it, groaning as the agony became unbearable, my knees buckling beneath me. Kevin, I whispered, her name slipping from my lips as my surroundings began to warp and fade. Then, like a floodgate had opened, flashes of last night's events came rushing back to me. It all played out like a rapid slideshow. Us leaving the bar together, entering the hotel room, our clothes coming off in a haze of passion. The heat of his body against mine, the electrifying sensation of his lips on my skin as we kissed, the urgency of his touch. Then, on the bed, things slowed. He hovered over me, his blue eyes intense, filled with something I couldn't quite understand. But then, he just stopped. I saw him staring down at me, his expression darkening as if he were fighting some internal battle. And then his face began to change. His once human face began to distort, and a low guttural growl rumbled from his chest. I watched in horror as his eyes glowed with an otherworldly fire. His teeth stretched out into sharp, beastly fangs. I opened my eyes slowly, the pounding in my head so intense I could barely focus. Each throb felt like it was splitting my skull in two. Groaning, I clutched my head, feeling like I might throw up from the pain. Shit, I muttered, my voice hoarse. When the hell did I pass out? With every ounce of strength I could gather, I pushed myself up, but the room spun wildly around me. I staggered to the couch and crashed down onto it, trying to steady myself. My hands dug into the cushions as if they could anchor me. My eyes drifted to the clock on the wall, the numbers blurry at first. But when they came into focus, panic gripped me. No way. My heart stopped. It was late, like late afternoon. I'd missed my shift. Fuck, I gasped, scrambling off the couch so fast I nearly fell over. I hit the floor, reaching for my phone. Hands shaking, I swiped it open, the screen flooding with notifications, missed calls, messages, all from one person. Not Kevin. My boss. My fingers trembled as I hit the call button, the phone pressed to my ear. It rang once, then twice, before my boss picked up. I'm so sorry, I blurted out, not even giving her a chance to say hello. I overslept, I wasn't feeling well. I didn't mean to Miss Clara, she said, cutting me off mid-sentence. Her voice was calm, almost too calm. It's all right. I got someone else to cover your absence today. Does that mean I still have my job? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper, not sure if I really wanted to hear the answer. There was a pause, and for a moment, I could have sworn I stopped breathing. Of course, she finally said, her tone soft and reassuring. You're so good with my kids, and they love you. Though they're a bit upset that you didn't come today. I hope you get better and show up tomorrow. I nodded quickly, even though she couldn't see me. Relief flooded through me. Of course, I'll be there. I'm really sorry again. It's okay, she said kindly, and then the line went dead. I stared at the phone for a moment, then let it fall beside me as I dropped down onto the floor, laying flat on my back, my whole body sinking into the carpet, waves of relief washing over me. I wasn't fired, thank God. But as I lay there, my mind drifted back, uninvited, to the hazy images I had, the intense eyes, the raw heat of my one-night stand. I saw flashes of his face, his hands, and then something else, animalistic. Like he wasn't human. My body shivered at the memory, and I jolted upright, my heart pounding again. That was a hell of a nightmare, I muttered, rubbing my temples. It had to be a nightmare. There was no way any of that was real. But then, I touched my shoulder, right where he had bitten me. A jolt of electric sparks shot through me, sending a tingling sensation down my spine. Holy fuck! Holy fuck! Holy fuck! I cursed out loud, looking around the room as if expecting some hidden camera to jump out and tell me this was all some prank. I let out a long sigh, forcing myself to smile as I sat back down. Okay, Cora, let's just forget about that nightmare and move on with the day. We're fine. We're totally fine. I stood up, stretching my stiff body, trying to shake off the unease. First, get a shower. Second, have something to eat. Third, head to the pharmacy for some ointment for that. Whatever this is, I mumbled, touching my shoulder again. Everything will be okay, I whispered to myself, trying to believe it. As I made my way toward the bedroom, my phone rang again. I groaned, turning back quickly, expecting it to be my boss from the babysitting gig calling again for some reason. But when I grabbed the phone and glanced at the screen, I froze. Not her, him. My bastard boss from the bar, the same one who fired me last night. Fury bubbled up inside me. I grumbled under my breath, my grip tightening on the phone. You fired me, now what the hell do you want? I spat more to myself than anyone. Against my better judgment, I picked up the call, opening my mouth to say something. But before I could even get a word out, his voice shot through the line, cutting me off. Come back to work today, he demanded, his tone sharp, as if it was an order, not a request. I chuckled bitterly, the sound dripping with sarcasm. Why the fuck would I come back after everything that happened? I practically growled. The memories of that night flooded back. The customers, the way they insulted me like I was a play toy. Do you want your precious customers to finish the job they couldn't on me? Forget about that, he said, his voice dismissive. And come back. I couldn't find a suitable replacement. If I had, I wouldn't have bothered calling you. So I expect you to be here earlier in the evening. I ground my teeth together, the fury bubbling up to a boiling point. I wanted to scream at him, tell him to go to hell and never call me again. The words were right on the tip of my tongue. But then the thought of my rent popped into my mind. Rent that was coming up very asterisk soon, with barely any money to pay it. My jaw clenched, and I forced myself to take a deep breath. It wasn't about him. It wasn't about pride. I'll be there, I said, my voice calm, betraying the anger swirling inside me. I could practically hear his satisfied smirk through the phone. Good. Don't be late. He hung up without another word. I stood there, phone still in hand, my mind racing. I wanted to scream, punch something, anything to release the anger surging through me. Instead, I just let out a long, frustrated sigh. Great, I muttered. Just fucking great. Evening came, and I stood in my bedroom, tugging on a pair of tight jeans, the fabric stretching snugly against my skin. I grabbed the ointment tube I had picked up from the pharmacy earlier. I unscrewed the cap and applied it to the bite mark on my shoulder. It was surprising that I felt no stinging pain. Instead, a strange, almost electric sensation rippled through me every time my fingers brushed over it. It wasn't unpleasant. If anything, it felt good. Too good. I frowned, shaking my head to clear the thought. What the hell happened to me? I muttered, capping the ointment. When I was finally dressed, I gave myself one last glance in the mirror, checking my reflection. Tight jeans, black shirt, hair pulled back in a messy bun. It would do. I grabbed my bag, took a deep breath, and headed out the door. By the time I reached the bar, the sun had set, and the streets were cast in that dim, early evening light. The familiar neon sign flickered above the door as I walked inside. The place wasn't packed yet, but it was starting to fill up. I slipped behind the counter and got to work without a word. The hours ticked by, and surprisingly, everything was going smoothly. The customers were rowdy, but nothing out of the ordinary. No spilled drinks, no grabbing hands, just normal bar chaos. And my boss? He hadn't said a word to me since I arrived. No snide comments, no grumbling, no insults, nothing. It was strange. I shoved the feeling aside. Maybe he felt bad about yesterday. Maybe for once he had a sliver of humanity and realized he'd been a bastard. But knowing him, it wasn't that deep. Either way, I wasn't going to question it too much. I just want to get through the night without any more problems. Just when I thought the night might actually go smoothly, the door swung open, and in walked the last people I ever wanted to see again. The group of men from yesterday, loud, obnoxious, and dangerous. My heart pounded against my chest the second I saw them. But I forced myself to keep it together. I couldn't fall apart, not now. The same huge guy, the one with the snaked-up tattoos coiling around his arms and neck, sauntered over to me, his cruel smile already in place. His eyes were dark, gleaming with malicious intent. He leaned in slightly, looking past me, and sneered. "You made the right choice bringing her back, Jason," he said, his voice dripping with mockery. I froze, my stomach twisting into tight knots. Jason? I slowly turned my head, and there he was, my boss, standing a few feet behind me. His expression was cold, detached, like he wasn't even fazed by what was happening. My throat tightened, and I whispered, "What? What is he talking about? You made the right choice?" My boss's eyes barely flickered with any emotion as he cut me off, his voice flat. "I couldn't lose my bar over an employee I'm not related to," he said, shrugging casually like this was all just a business decision. "I had to bring you back and finish what you started." I stared at him in disbelief, a bitter laugh bubbling up from my throat. "You're such a disgusting boss, you know that? What happened yesterday was an accident because I wasn't feeling well." Before I could finish, the guy grabbed me roughly by the shoulder, spinning me to face him. His hand was like a vice, holding me in place. and his face twisted into something dark as he leaned in close, sniffing me. The audacity, the sheer invasion of my space made me want to scream, but I tried to pry his hands off me, struggling to free myself. "Let go of me," I shouted, my voice shaking with both fear and fury. To my surprise, he actually let go, raising his hands in a mocking gesture of surrender, but his smile only grew wider. "I smell him on you," he said, his voice low and amused, as if he'd just discovered the punchline to some twisted joke. "This is going to be a lot more fun than I anticipated." A chill ran down my spine at his words, and my heart pounded so hard I thought it might explode out of my chest. Smell him? What the hell was this psycho talking about? I took a step back, my body trembling with a mix of fear and confusion. "What the hell are you talking about?" I demanded, trying to keep my voice steady. "There's no one on me." "Don't play dumb, sweetheart." The man's grin turned wolfish. "I know a marked human when I see one." He pointed to my shoulder, where the ointment had done nothing to conceal the faint marks. "And you? You belong to someone?" My breath hitched. This was bad. Really bad. I glanced at Jason, hoping for some kind of explanation, some indication that this was all a misunderstanding, but his face remained a mask. Cold, detached, completely uncaring, like I was nothing more than a pawn in whatever sick game he'd orchestrated. I swallowed hard, my pulse racing as I struggled to make sense of what was happening. I glanced from the man to Jason, then back again, my mind whirling. This couldn't be real. Whatever nightmare I'd stepped into, I needed to get out, now. Without saying another word, I reached behind me, yanked the apron over my head, and tossed it at Jason. "I think I need to go," I said, my voice cold. "And this time, I'm quitting. I can't work for a scumbag like you." Jason didn't flinch. His eyes met mine for a split second, emotionless as ever. "Fine," he muttered, not even trying to stop me. Of course he wouldn't. To him, I was just another employee, replaceable, disposable. So, I turned sharply on my heel, intending to walk right out of that bar and never look back. But just as I started moving, I felt a strong hand clamp down on my arm, stopping me in my tracks. My blood ran cold. "Not so soon, princess," the guy growled, his grip tightening painfully around my arm. I jerked my head to the side, glaring at him, but his smile only widened, like he was enjoying the whole thing. "Mo! Get off me!" I snarled, trying to yank my arm out of his grasp. He didn't budge. His fingers dug into my skin like iron claws, and every attempt to pull away seemed to make his grip stronger. "I said get off me!" I shouted, panic and fury blending into one. "Ow!" He just chuckled, low and sinister, and with a sudden shove, he pushed me toward one of his men, who caught me easily. "Bring her!" he ordered, his voice dripping with smug satisfaction. No, let go of me!" I screamed, kicking and flailing. But it was no use. The guy holding me slung me over his shoulder like I was nothing more than a rag doll. My fists pounded against his back, my legs kicking wildly, but he didn't even flinch. "Put me down, you psycho!" I shouted, but they were already heading for the door, dragging me out into the night. My heart raced as I was carried toward a black car parked right outside the bar. I twisted and struggled, desperate to break free, but nothing worked. The cold night air hit my face as they threw open the car door, shoving me inside. My head hit the seat with a dull thud as they slammed the door shut behind me, trapping me in the back of the car. I scrambled up, clawing at the door handle, but it wouldn't budge. Panic surged through me as the engine roared to life, and the car sped off into the darkness, taking me with it. I lunged for the other door, hoping to find it unlocked, but it was no use. Locked tight. The reality of the situation crashed over me, and for a moment, I was frozen, staring out the window as the streetlights blurred past. I'd been taken. Kidnapped. I pressed my back against the seat, my breathing rapid and shallow as I tried to gather my thoughts. My mind raced, but it felt like I was trapped in quicksand. No matter how hard I fought to think clearly, panic kept pulling me under. I glanced at the front seat, where the guy who had grabbed me now sat, his eyes focused on the road. Another man, the one who'd pointed out my mark, sat beside him. He tilted the rearview mirror, and our eyes met. I could see the satisfaction in his gaze, the triumph, like he'd just won some prize. "What do you want from me?" I demanded, my voice coming out more desperate. "Let me go." He only smirked, his eyes glinting with something dark. "You'll see soon enough." I clenched my fists, the feeling of helplessness twisting into rage. "I don't belong to anyone," I snapped, trying to hold on to that last shred of defiance. "Whatever you think you know, it's wrong." He let out a low, mocking laugh. "Is that so? Because the mark on your shoulder says otherwise." He paused, his eyes narrowing. "Your alpha's been careless, leaving his claim unprotected like this." I kicked the back of the driver's seat hard. "You've got the wrong person," I yelled, hoping against hope that they might listen. "I'm not some marked human." But they just exchanged glances and smirks like they were sharing some private joke. The man in the passenger seat twisted around, his gaze locking onto mine. "Whether you believe it or not doesn't change the fact, sweetheart, and your alpha's gonna have to pay a pretty price to get you back." My blood went cold. "What are you talking about?" He shrugged casually as if discussing the weather. "It's simple. We hold you as leverage until he comes crawling." The car slowed as we pulled off the main road and onto a narrow, winding path surrounded by thick trees. My chance to escape was slipping away. I had to act fast. "Please," I said, lowering my voice, hoping a softer tone might work. "Just let me go. I swear, no one has to know. I'll disappear." But they ignored me, the car bumping over a gravel path as we drove deeper into the woods. My heart hammered in my chest as the trees loomed closer, blocking out the moonlight. We were miles from anywhere now, and any hope of someone seeing us or hearing my cries faded with each passing second. The car came to a stop in front of a rundown cabin, its windows dark and its wooden frame leaning like it could collapse at any moment. The men got out, leaving me alone for a brief moment. My eyes darted around the car, searching for anything I could use, a weapon, a way to break the window, anything. But the doors were locked, and the only things in the back seat were empty soda cans and old receipts. The door swung open, and rough hands grabbed me, pulling me out. I stumbled, nearly falling as they dragged me toward the cabin. The chill of the night air sank into my skin, but I barely noticed. Fear was a vice around my throat, tightening with each step. They shoved me inside, and I stumbled into the dark, musty space. The smell of damp wood and mildew filled my nose as they slammed the door shut behind me. I turned, backing away as they loomed closer, my eyes darting to every corner of the room for an escape. The windows were covered in grime, and the only light came from a single dim bulb hanging overhead. "Welcome to your new home, sweetheart," the man who'd pointed out my mark said, his grin widening. "Better get comfortable. We're gonna be here for a while." With that, he stormed out, slamming the door behind him and locking it with a sharp click. I listened as his footsteps faded into the distance, each step tightening the knot of fear in my chest. My legs gave out beneath me and I sank to the ground, trembling. My mind raced, the terror of not knowing what they wanted or what they planned to do clawing at me, threatening to overwhelm my senses. "Think, Clara, think." My gaze darted around, searching for anything that could help me. A rock, a stick, a knife. Something. Before I could make a move, the sound of his footsteps echoed again, marching back toward the cabin. My heart pounded as I scrambled to my feet, but just as I did, the door swung open, revealing a figure cloaked in shadows. "Is this her?" The voice was low and dangerous, sending a fresh wave of fear coursing through me. The tattooed guy nodded. "Yes, Alpha. She's the one." The figure stepped into the light, revealing a tall, imposing man with piercing eyes that locked onto mine. His lips curled into a cold smile. "Welcome, Clara. You're just in time." My breath hitched as his gaze from the shadows bored into mine like he could see straight into my soul. There was something chilling in the way he looked at me. a blend of power and indifference that made the air feel heavy. I took an involuntary step back, pressing myself against the wall, desperate to put some distance between us. But the cabin was too small, too confining, and I was too trapped. He took a slow step forward, each movement deliberate and unhurried. His gaze held mine captive, dark and unreadable, as if he could see every fear and secret I harbored. The intensity of his stare made it feel like the air was suffocating, pressing in on all sides. I took a shaky step back, pressing myself against the rough wooden wall of the cabin, desperate to keep some space between us. But there was no escaping the ominous presence of this man, the danger that radiated off him in cold, unrelenting waves. What? What do you want from me? I managed, my voice trembling despite my best efforts to keep it steady. He let out a low chuckle, each note dripping with a chilling amusement. He took his time closing the distance between us, his movements calculated and unhurried. As he drew closer, the air thickened with his scent, a mix of smoke and something wilder, more primal. His aura pressed down on me, and I felt my knees weaken under its weight. Suddenly, his hand shot up, grabbing my chin and tilting my face upward so that I had no choice but to look into his cold, handsome face. Despite the threat he embodied, I found myself unable to ignore the sharp angles of his jaw, the dark, intense eyes that seemed to bore into me. Then, his hand moved to my shoulder, tugging the edge of my shirt to reveal the bite mark beneath. His fingers brushed against my skin, the sensation sending a jolt of disgust and something unsettling through me. I yanked myself back, twisting my body away from him. "Don't touch me," I snapped, my voice sharper than I felt inside, fueled by a desperate need to fight. His expression hardened and his jaw tightened as he stepped back, a glint of displeasure flashing in his eyes. He turned to the other man, the one from the bar, with a cold, ruthless smile. "Take her to the pack house," he ordered, his voice smooth but laced with menace. "Undress her. Tie her up in the entrance yard. Let everyone see." Without another word, he turned and left. The man nodded eagerly, his face lighting up at the command. "Right to it, Alpha." The words barely registered before his hands were reaching for me, but I was ready this time. My knee shot up hard, catching him in the groin, and he buckled, letting out a guttural groan as he clutched himself, his face twisted in agony. Before he could recover, I took off, running out of the cabin and into the cool night air, desperate to put as much distance as I could between myself and that place. But as I burst outside, I saw the Alpha standing there, flanked by several other men. They all looked at me with the same piercing gaze as if they'd been waiting for this moment. One of them moved, starting toward me, but the Alpha raised a hand, stopping him in his tracks. "Leave her," he said, his eyes fixed on me with an almost lazy amusement. There was a mocking glint in his gaze, a challenge. "Run!" His voice was calm, smooth, but the edges were sharp as steel. "Run, just make sure I don't catch you." I didn't wait. I spun on my heel, sprinting into the woods, feeling the burn in my lungs as I pushed myself to run faster. Branches scraped my skin as I ran, every step fueled by the desperate need to get away from him. After a few yards, my body demanded a glance back, even though I didn't want to. I stole a quick look over my shoulder, and there he was, standing still, watching me from the cabin's edge with that same calm, deadly confidence, as if he was already certain of how this would end. That look made my blood turn cold. I didn't know what he planned to do if he caught me, but I knew I wouldn't go down without a fight. I ran. How long? Only God knew. The cold night air whipped against my face, and the darkness seemed endless, stretching on as far as my eyes could see. Every muscle in my legs screamed with exhaustion. Every breath felt like fire in my lungs. My legs wavered beneath me, aching with every step, but I refused to stop. I kept scanning the distance, hoping for the faintest glimpse of a road, of headlights, anything that might promise an escape. But the woods seemed to close in tighter around me, a twisted maze with no end. Finally, I stopped, doubling over as I clutched my knees, struggling to catch my breath. My chest heaved, and sweat clung to my skin, mingling with the dirt and leaves that had slapped against me as I ran. That's when I heard it, a low, guttural growl that reverberated through the trees, chilling the blood in my veins. My heart jolted painfully, but I didn't dare look back. I forced myself to move, to run, willing my legs to carry me faster as I raced through the shadows, hoping the growl would fade into nothingness. But fate wasn't on my side. I stumbled over a branch, my foot twisting at a sickening angle, and fell forward onto the forest floor. The impact sent a shock of pain through my body as twigs and rocks dug into my skin, scratching my arms and tearing my shirt. I let out a low, pained cry as my ankle throbbed with sharp agony, making it nearly impossible to move. And then, like nightmare brought to life, the growl came again. Low, menacing, and much, much closer. My heart pounded as I lifted my eyes, focusing on the dark shape emerging from the shadows, stalking closer. I froze, my blood running cold. Towering above me, barely 10 feet away, was the largest wolf I had ever seen. Massive, its dark coat blending into the night, it was at least 3 to 4 times the size of a normal wolf, its eyes glowing with an unearthly light. The sheer size of it, the rippling muscles beneath its fur, made my mind reel with terror. As it prowled forward, I tried to push myself back, my trembling arms scraping over rocks and branches in a desperate attempt to put even an inch of space between us. But my twisted ankle screamed in protest, and all I could do was inch back, helpless against the overwhelming dread clawing at me. The wolf's movements were swift and deliberate, its enormous body barely making a sound. Before I could even blink, it was towering over me, its powerful form blocking out the sky, trapping me beneath it. I stared up, terror paralyzing me as I tried to process the impossible sight in front of me. Its eyes locked onto mine, its hot breath grazing my skin as it trapped me beneath it, each growl vibrating through my bones. I could barely breathe, my pulse pounding as I stared up at the creature, completely at its mercy. The giant wolf stared down at me, eyes dark and intense, as if savoring my terror. It didn't move, just hovered there, its massive body pinning me to the ground, drinking in my fear. My breath came in short, ragged gasps, every inch of me locked in helpless horror as I waited for it to strike. And then, in one swift movement, it snapped its jaws open, revealing long, jagged teeth. Drool dripped from its mouth, landing on my face, hot and sickening, sending a chill through my veins. The wolf's growl turned low and menacing, vibrating against my chest as it brought its snout closer, poised to devour me. Suddenly, with a ferocious snarl, another wolf crashed into it, knocking it off of me. The impact was so intense that I felt the ground shake, and I sucked in a gasp of air, feeling like I'd just been dragged from the depths of dark water. I rolled to the side, still struggling to breathe as I watched the two massive wolves collide, their growls mingling with the crackling leaves and whipping branches around them. In the chaos, I barely noticed the figure approaching until I felt strong hands scoop me up from the ground. Before I could protest or even comprehend what was happening, I was placed onto a soft, warm surface. I blinked in shock, my eyes adjusting to see another figure settling in behind me, supporting my trembling form. Then, with a powerful lurch, we started moving. I looked down, my heart catching in my throat as I realized what I was sitting on. A wolf, pure white, its fur as bright as fresh snow. I swallowed hard, blinking to bring my eyes into focus, trying to grasp whether this was reality or some desperate hallucination conjured by fear. But the soft, steady warmth beneath me seemed to say otherwise. My whole body ached as I clung to the soft, warm fur beneath me. The steady rhythm of the wolf's movement was both calming and dizzying. A strange comfort as we tore through the forest, away from the nightmare I'd barely escaped. The night air stung my cheeks, and my pulse throbbed in my temples, each second feeling stretched as we sped deeper into the woods. Eventually we slowed, the air turning damp and still. I felt myself slide off the wolf's back and onto solid ground, my legs buckling beneath me. I leaned forward, my stomach turning violently as I retched into the grass. Is she all right? A woman's voice broke through the ringing in my ears, and I turned, blinking as my vision finally settled. She'll be fine, replied another, her voice softer but sure. I took a few deep breaths, feeling the bite of the cold night air fill my lungs. Where had they brought me? I glanced up, my pulse still racing, and saw a massive house looming before me, its dark outline cutting into the night sky. It was like something out of an old story, a place you might stumble upon in a dream. Or a nightmare. 3 figures stood a few steps away, a man and 2 women, all watching me with expressions that were unreadable but intense, as though they were sizing me up, deciding if I was worth the trouble. I tried to steady myself, squaring my shoulders as best I could. Where am I? I managed, my voice unsteady. Who are you? Before they could answer, a rustling from the trees made me freeze. And then I saw it. The huge brown wolf, the one who had saved me from the black beast, stepping into the clearing. My heart pounded again, my pulse roaring in my ears. Its amber eyes gleamed in the night, and its powerful form looked even more massive as it moved toward us, its gaze locked on me. I was about to back away, but suddenly the wolf stopped, its body tense, and I heard a sickening crunch. My heart dropped as the wolf's fur began to shrink back, its bones contorting and twisting with a series of snaps that made my skin crawl. I stared, horrified yet transfixed, as the beast's massive form shifted, fur receding, claws shrinking into fingers, until, in the space of a few breaths, it wasn't a wolf standing there anymore. It was him. My hot one-night stand. My heart nearly stopped as his gaze pinned me in place, dark and all-knowing, as if I'd somehow summoned him from the depths of a memory I couldn't shake. I sucked in a sharp breath, fighting to keep my voice steady as 1,000 questions burned on my tongue. But no words would come. They remained trapped in my throat as I stared at him, struggling to process what I had just witnessed. He met my gaze with an unreadable, cold expression that chilled me to the core. Then, without a single word or glance back, he turned and strode into the house, leaving me anchored to the spot, caught between dread and reluctant fascination. I stood there, rooted in place, my mind swinging wildly between the impossible, that these people were actually werewolves, and the only other explanation, that I was losing my mind. Taking a shaky breath, I tried to steady myself. My heart hammered as I forced myself forward, driven by the need for answers. I crossed the clearing and made it to the house's entrance, determined to confront him, to make sense of all this. But just as I reached the door, a strong hand gripped my wrist, halting me in place. I turned, startled, to find a tall, muscular man with a rugged face and piercing eyes looking down at me. Another disturbingly handsome stranger, yet his expression was guarded. "This isn't a good idea," he said, his voice low. I wriggled my hand free from his grasp, narrowing my eyes. "I need to talk to him. I have questions. And if you'd kindly let me go, that'd be great." He didn't release me, his grip firm, but not painful. "If I were you, I wouldn't push him. He's in no mood for a talk, especially with you." He paused, his gaze steady. "I'm afraid he might kill you." My pulse spiked, but I forced myself to stay steady, giving my wrist another firm tug. "Just let go of me." He released me a bit too suddenly, and I almost stumbled back, regaining my balance just in time. I straightened, leveling a determined glare at him. "I appreciate your concern, but I don't need it." A flicker of amusement crossed his face, and he raised his hands in a mock surrender gesture. "All right, don't say I didn't warn you." Ignoring his caution, I moved past him and stepped inside the grand shadowed foyer of the house. The place was huge and echoed with an eerie silence, every creak of the floorboards amplifying the tension thrumming through me. I paused and turned back toward the man. "Where did he go?" He nodded toward the stairs. "Upstairs. Turn right. He'll be either in the 3rd room or the last one." I climbed the staircase slowly, my pulse drumming louder with each step. The house was dim, with only a few lights casting shadows along the walls. It felt more like entering the lair of some dark hidden creature than the home of anyone remotely human. When I reached the top, I turned right as he had instructed, glancing down the hallway. Doors lined both sides, but the third one on the right caught my eye. The air felt heavier here, and I could almost feel his presence radiating from behind it. With a deep breath, I steadied myself and approached the door, raising my hand to knock. Then hesitated. This was probably insane. I had no idea what I would find on the other side, no clear plan of what to even say. But I had to know. I had to understand. Just as my knuckles were about to make contact, the door creaked open an inch, and a familiar piercing gaze caught me in the narrow space. He looked at me, his expression unreadable, but his eyes filled with an intensity that sent a chill down my spine. I parted my lips to speak, but he cut me off, his voice grave. "What are you doing up here?" I swallowed, forcing myself to hold his unyielding gaze. "I have questions," I said, my voice steady despite the knot of nerves twisting inside me. "After what I just saw, I need answers." Before I could even react, his hand shot up to my throat, gripping me tightly as he shoved me back against the wall. My heart pounded, wild and erratic, as his features twisted, morphing into something both human and wolf. Sharp teeth, a hint of fur along his jawline, eyes blazing with a predatory gleam. His growl was low, feral, vibrating through me like a thunderous echo, making every part of me seize up in fear. "Who are you, really?" he snarled, his face inches from mine, his grip unrelenting. "What did you do to me?" I tried to form words, but fear tangled them on my tongue. My heart hammered against my ribs as I stared up at him, my own voice barely a whisper. What are you talking about? I didn't..." He cut me off with a guttural growl that sent tremors through my body. "Don't play games with me," he hissed, his eyes piercing through me as though they could pry open my soul. "What did you do to me that night? How did you make me mark you?" "Mark me?" I echoed, confusion mingling with fear. "You think I did something to you? I didn't even know what you were until tonight." My heart raced, desperate to break free from his grip, but I knew better than to struggle too hard. The look on his face told me he was dangerously close to losing control. His grip tightened slightly, a warning in his expression. "You don't get to pretend you're innocent in this. I remember everything. That night, you were different. You were intoxicating. Did you ask me sex with intentions?" I swallowed hard, struggling to process his words. The heat of his anger, of his powerful presence, was overwhelming. I forced myself to meet his eyes, feeling a tremor of defiance break through the fear gripping me. "I don't know what you're talking about," I stammered, struggling to maintain my composure. "Yes, I asked for sex, but it was a moment of weakness. I was going through a rough time, and I got caught up in something far beyond my control. That night, it was just a mistake, a drunken blur. I didn't mean to create whatever this is." My heart raced as I spoke, desperate to make him understand that I hadn't set out to entangle our lives in this way as he believed so. He released me suddenly, and I collapsed to the floor, gasping for breath as the air rushed back into my lungs. Coughing violently, I struggled to regain my composure, the weight of his presence still pressing down on me like a heavy fog. He stood above me, his expression a blend of anger and confusion, as if he were battling something deep within himself. The weight of his gaze bore down on me, and I could see the beast lurking just beneath the surface of his humanity. He crouched down, his piercing gaze locking onto mine, and I felt the air grow heavy between us. "I don't know what you did," he said, his voice low and laced with tension, "but this wasn't supposed to happen. I'm not supposed to mark anyone, ever." My heart dropped, panic swirling in my chest as his words sank in. "And the only way to break this stupid bond," he continued, his voice dropping to a deadly whisper, "is to kill it. I'm not sorry for this, but to kill it is to kill you."
Riven's point of view. The forest was cool and quiet, the early morning fog curling between the trees like ghostly fingers. My paws pounded against the damp earth as I sprinted through the woods, feeling the familiar pulse of freedom that came with each stride. But no matter how fast I ran, my mind kept circling back to her, the human now lying somewhere in my house, the one I'd foolishly, or maybe drunkenly, marked. I gritted my teeth, speeding up as if I could outrun the nagging thoughts clawing at me. But before I could dive too deep into my frustration, Liam shot past me in a blur of silver-gray fur, his movements annoyingly swift and carefree. He glanced back, eyes gleaming with amusement as his voice slipped into my head through our mind link. "Love problems?" His tone dripped with mockery. I bared my teeth, pushing forward until I reclaimed the lead, brushing past him with a warning growl. "Have a death wish, Liam?" We raced each other, our paws thundering in sync, until we finally slowed deeper in the forest, our breaths coming in thick clouds. We shifted back, human again, muscles taut and panting as the early sunlight filtered through the canopy, casting broken shadows on the forest floor. Liam leaned against a tree, still catching his breath, but with that infuriating smirk lingering on his face. "So, what have you decided?" he asked casually. "Are you going to let her stick around?" I wiped a hand across my face, feeling the bite of the morning air against my skin. "What other solution do I have?" I muttered, frustration threading through my voice. "If I let her go, Dominic will get his hands on her. He'll use her to his advantage, to get to me, to get to all of us." I met his gaze, my tone sharpening. "Because I fucking marked her. It's my damn responsibility to protect her now." Liam's smirk deepened, and he raised an eyebrow, clearly about to tease me. But I cut him off. "And don't even think about saying she's my mate, Liam. I don't have a mate. I don't want a mate. Not ever. That was just a protecting mark, nothing more." He held up his hands, feigning innocence. "Did you hear me say she's your mate?" I clenched my fists, annoyance simmering beneath the surface. This whole situation was a mess. The last thing I needed was a weak human tethered to me, someone who had no idea of the dangers that came with our world. But I knew the rules, and once marked, a bond, even one as thin as this, carried consequences. Letting her go meant leaving her vulnerable, and with Dominic sniffing around for any chance to strike, that wasn't an option I could afford. Liam's voice broke through my thoughts, a lazy smirk spreading across his face. "You know," he said, eyes glinting with a mixture of mischief and challenge, "I think it's time for you to relax with having sex. All that wanting so many pussies led you to this. A marked human." He chuckled, crossing his arms as he leaned back against a tree. I shot him a glare that could have made anyone else think twice, but Liam just laughed, unfazed. He raised his hands in mock surrender. All right. No need to bite my ass off. But there's one more thing." He sighed, brushing a hand through his hair as his tone grew more serious. "Listen, your mother reached out to Ava." He scratched the back of his head, hesitating. She's still hoping you'll come back to the pack. Ava's handling it for now, but it's wearing her down. Can't you at least see her once, just to ease her mind? She misses you, Riven." I didn't let him finish. Shifting back into my wolf form, I connected with him through the mind link, my tone cutting through any lingering sentiment. "I have a job to finish in the city, Liam." Without waiting for his response, I sprinted toward the house, my paws pounding against the earth. The cool wind rushed past, pulling at my fur as if trying to strip away the weight of everything I'd left behind. But the past was stubborn, clinging like a shadow. But soon, the familiar sound of paws on earth reached my ears. Liam was keeping pace behind me, stubborn as ever. I pushed faster, but he matched me until we neared the edge of the woods where the house came into view. I shifted back, not bothering to wait for him as I made my way towards the house. As I reached the door, the last thing I wanted to see was there, like some unwanted miracle. She was standing in the doorway, frozen as she caught sight of me, her eyes widening before she whirled around with a gasp, muttering a curse under her breath, as if she'd never seen a naked man before. I barely spared her a glance, striding past her and straight to my room. I needed a shower, and a cold one at that, if I was going to figure out how to handle the disaster that was quickly becoming my life. Just as I closed the door behind me, her voice came from outside my door, muffled but determined. "I have a request," she started, a hint of pleading in her tone. "I know we agreed on staying here for a few days, but can I go to my part-time job? Just for today. Then I'll quit, I promise. My boss, no." I cut her off, not even waiting for her to finish. A second later, the door burst open, peeking her head inside. Her eyes squeezed shut as she faced me. "Can you let me finish first?" I ignored her and continued toward the bathroom. I twisted the shower knob, letting the cold water stream down, muffling whatever words she was muttering. Even through the water, I could catch bits of her rambling. Something about promises, kids, and fairness. Until, finally, she went silent. I scrubbed a hand over my face, letting the icy water hit my skin. The frustration roared up inside me, a prickling fire that felt hotter than the scalding showers I was used to. I'd barely known her, and already she was grating on my nerves. I didn't need this, didn't want this, any of it. If I had it my way, I'd drive her right to the edge of the world and watch her disappear. But the stupid bond, as thin as it was, kept reminding me that I was responsible for her safety. And that thought, knowing that I could be the reason she'd get hurt, or worse, was more irritating than anything else. When I finally emerged from the bathroom, dressed and ready, I breathed a sigh of relief at the silence in the room. It seemed she'd finally given up and left, leaving me some much-needed peace. I headed downstairs, aiming for my car to get to work. Just as I reached the driveway, I caught sight of Ava jogging back from her morning run, her pace slowing as she saw me. "Ava," I called, and she jogged over, her expression calm but watchful. "Liam mentioned that my mother reached out to you." Ava nodded, brushing a loose strand of hair from her face. "She did." I sighed, trying to keep my frustration under control. "Please, Ava, if she reaches out again, just ignore her, all right?" She hesitated, her brows furrowing. "I'm not so sure about that, Riven. You know how insistent and stubborn your mother can be. But I'll try harder to keep my distance." A light smile tugged at my lips as I nodded in thanks. "That's all I ask." I glanced around, noticing Liam's usual morning coffee spot was vacant. "Have you seen Liam?" Without missing a beat, Ava replied, "He went after the human girl." My brow furrowed, confusion tightening in my chest. "What are you talking about?" "Your marked human girl," Ava clarified, watching my reaction closely. "She snuck out and ran off." The nagging thoughts of the infuriating woman clung to me like a persistent pain in the ass as I drove toward the city. Despite my best efforts to focus on the road ahead, her face kept flashing through my mind. How had she managed to slip past Liam, whom I think was in the damn house? As the car rumbled along the rugged mountain road, I felt a low growl escape my lips, the frustration within me intensifying with each passing mile. I opened the mind link to Liam, silently hoping he wasn't too far away to hear me. "Liam, did you get the girl?" Silence. My jaw clenched tighter. "Liam, I asked if you've got the fucking woman!" Still nothing. My patience frayed at the edges as I let out a string of curses under my breath. How far could she have gone? I didn't even take long in the shower, and Liam was in the fucking house too. How the hell did she manage to run off like that? Especially after I told her about the dangers. The ringing of my phone cut through my thoughts. I glanced at the screen and answered it, recognizing the number immediately. "Yeah?" I snapped, not bothering with warmness. A smooth, low voice came through the line. "Mr. Joe, I've sent you the address. It's where your target is." I closed my eyes briefly, letting out a slow breath. "All right. Got it." I hung up and quickly checked the message. The address popped up on the map, and I made a sharp turn to head in that direction. Before long, I tried the mind link again. Liam better have an answer, I thought bitterly, as I reopened the mind link. "Liam, where the hell are you?" This time, his voice came through, though it was labored and tinged with frustration. "I'm on it," he panted. "She's wise, just so you know." I frowned. "What the hell do you mean by that?" Liam let out a growl of irritation. She knew damn well we'd be coming after her, and used the chance to stumble into a group of hikers. I can't just barrel through them, can I? I have to keep watch. I cut him off before he could finish. "Deal with her, Liam." My tone left no room for argument, and I severed the mind link, slamming it shut like a door. I didn't want any distraction now. I needed my head clear for this job. It wasn't long before the city loomed ahead, its gray skyline cutting through the horizon. The nagging thought of her asterisk, and Liam's hunt for her still sat heavily in the back of my mind, but I shoved it aside. I had more pressing matters to deal with. As I approached the address the client had sent me, I slowed down and scanned the area. It was a quiet street, the kind of place where people minded their business. I parked the car in a shadowed corner, my gaze darting over the surroundings for any signs of movement. Before I could step out, my phone rang, the screen lighting up with the client's name. I answered, my voice clipped. "I've arrived." The man on the other end sounded hesitant, but urgent. "Mr. Joe, we need to extend the job to tonight. The target's schedule has shifted." I growled low, my grip tightening on the wheel. "Are you shitting me right now? If you've extended it, then find someone else. I have other important plans tonight." My tone was sharp, leaving no room for negotiation. "Please," the man pleaded, his voice rising with urgency. "I'll double the payment." "No," I snapped, already about to hang up, but his voice cut through with an offer that made me pause. "I'll triple it." I hesitated, my mind weighing the options. The job had already been an annoyance. Now it was becoming a complication. "Working for you tonight means I'll have to circle around my other plans," I said, my tone sharp. "Make it 4 times the pay." The man hesitated for only a moment before agreeing, his response quick and almost breathless. "Done." I hung up without another word, my mind already working through the logistics. With the job now pushed to the evening, I had time to deal with other pressing matters, like the infuriating human who'd managed to slip away despite my warnings. Turning the car around, I headed back toward the house, my frustration mounting with every mile. The thought of her nagged at me, clinging to my mind like a persistent itch I couldn't scratch. The house came into view, and I pulled into the driveway, my grip on the wheel tightening. The moment I stepped inside, I heard soft footsteps descending the stairs. Ava appeared, her long hair cascading over one shoulder as she adjusted the sleeves of her sweater. Her sharp eyes landed on me with mild surprise. "I thought you'd be back late," she said, her voice neutral but curious. "Change of plans," I replied curtly, shutting the door behind me. My gaze narrowed. Did Liam find her? Ava nodded, a faint smirk tugging at the corner of her lips. "He did. She's locked in the room upstairs." "All right." I didn't bother saying more, brushing past her as I headed for the staircase. Ava didn't stop me, though I felt her eyes following me as I ascended. I reached the door to the room Liam had locked her in, the faint scent of her lingering behind the wood. My jaw tightened, irritation clawing at me as I raised my foot and kicked the door open. The sharp crack of the impact echoed through the hall. She leaped back, a startled scream tearing from her lips as she pressed herself against the far wall. Her wide eyes brimmed with fear, her chest rising and falling as if she'd just run a marathon. Good. Let her be scared. Maybe that would teach her not to be so stupid and run off again. I stepped into the room, the tension thick as I fixed her with a glare, ready to unleash a warning that would keep her in line. But before I could even open my mouth, she blurted out something that froze me mid-step. "You're not going to hurt me," she said, her voice trembling but filled with a strange certainty. Her eyes locked onto mine, a mix of fear and defiance swirling in their depths. "I'm your mate, right?"
Clara's point of view. My pulse thundered in my ears, drowning out the sound of his boots as he stepped closer. His presence filled the small room, a storm of raw energy and rage that made it hard to breathe. I should have been terrified. Hell, I was terrified, but the words had slipped from my mouth before I could stop them. "I'm your mate, right?" His steps halted abruptly. For a moment, all I could hear was the heavy sound of his breathing, rough and uneven, like he was struggling to hold himself together. His sharp blue eyes locked onto mine. The weight of his gaze pinned me in place, but I refused to look away. He didn't answer. His silence was louder than any words could have been. "Say something," I whispered, my voice trembling. My hands balled into fists at my sides, nails digging into my palms to keep me grounded. "You can't just barge in here, terrify me, and then—" "Quiet." His voice was low and gruff, cutting through my words like a blade. The command sent a shiver down my spine, freezing me in place. "Where did you get this nonsense?" he growled, his voice carrying a dangerous edge. His eyes narrowed as he stepped closer, his towering presence suffocating. "Who told you that?" My heart raced, but I refused to look away. "So it's true," I said, my voice trembling but defiant. I pulled my sleeve down slightly, exposing the mark over my shoulder. "This bite mark, it means I'm your mate." "Shut it." His bark was sharp and explosive, like a crack of thunder, making me flinch as dread crawled over my skin. Cold chills raced down my spine, and my breath caught in my throat. For a moment, his chest heaved with restrained anger, but then he swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing. His voice dropped, low and dangerous. "The hikers, the ones I bumped into when I tried to run away. They saw the mark. They said it meant I was mated to a werewolf. That's how I learned about it. That's all." His teeth ground together audibly, the sound sharp and grating. His face contorted in fury, turning red as his eyes darkened to something deadly, something inhuman. His fists clenched at his sides as his entire body tensed like a coiled spring. I didn't dare move as he took slow, deliberate steps toward me, each one heavier than the last. Instinct screamed at me to run, but my legs felt rooted to the floor. When my back hit the wall, a jolt of fear shot through me. I had nowhere left to go. His transformation began, and my wide eyes took in every horrifying detail. Coarse wolf fur sprouted along his arms, his face contorting, muscles bulging as his fingers curled into claws. His breaths came in short, ragged bursts, and his voice, when it came, was a guttural growl that carried a deadly finality. "Whatever those hikers told you is not true," he said, his tone low and dripping with menace. His glowing eyes locked onto mine, pinning me in place like a predator to its prey. "This mark," he jabbed a clawed finger toward my shoulder, "was an accident. It wasn't supposed to be. You're not my mate, and you never will be, all right?" I nodded quickly, the movement almost frantic. His piercing gaze burned into me, and for a long, excruciating moment, he stayed there, his form towering over me, his breathing heavy and primal. Finally, with a sharp inhale, he stepped back. Without another word, he stormed out of the room, the door slamming shut behind him with a force that made the walls tremble. The silence that followed was deafening. My legs gave out beneath me, and I slid to the floor, my entire body trembling. A heavy breath I hadn't realized I was holding rushed from my lungs, and I buried my face in my hands, trying to steady the chaos inside me. A few moments later, the door creaked open, and Liam stepped inside. His eyes swept over me, taking in my trembling figure on the floor. He frowned, concern etched into his features. "Are you okay?" he asked cautiously. I glared up at him, my anger boiling over. Pushing myself to my feet, I squared my shoulders, though my legs still felt weak beneath me. "Do I look like I'm fine?" I snapped, my voice shaking with fury. "You almost got me killed. I should have told him you're the one who told me everything." Liam's expression didn't falter. Instead, he crossed his arms, his calm demeanor only infuriating me further. "But it's the truth," he said simply. "You're his mate. There's nothing to hide anymore. You saw us and our wolves. You know we exist. Keeping you in the dark would have been pointless." I let out a bitter laugh, my hands balling into fists. "I don't need any of this," I shouted, my voice cracking under the weight of my emotions. "I just want to live a normal life." Liam chuckled, low and humorless, the sound making my frustration spike. "A normal life?" he repeated mockingly. "You mean that hell of juggling multiple jobs just to scrape by? Is that what you call a life?" His words hit a nerve, and I glared at him, my chest tightening. "Since you're not human," I doubt, "you wouldn't understand it." "You're definitely right about that," he said with a shrug, unbothered by my outburst. "But still, you're not going back to your so-called human life. I want you to stay here. With us. With Riven." My jaw dropped slightly, stunned by his audacity. "What?" I whispered, shaking my head in disbelief. "Why would I?" "I want you to help him heal," Liam continued, his voice softer now, almost pleading. "To bring him back to the man he was, the alpha he used to be. He needs you, even if he'll never admit it." I took slow, deliberate steps toward him, my fists clenched at my sides, each word escaping my lips like venom. "I will not do it," I said firmly, glaring up at him. "Good enough. He just made it very clear to me that he doesn't need me. Everything that happened was a mistake." Liam closed his eyes for a moment, his jaw tightening, as though he was weighing his response. When he opened them again, his golden gaze locked onto mine, steady and calm. "All right," he said with a small nod. "That's okay." I blinked, caught off guard by his sudden agreement. "But," he added, his tone shifting as a sly smile tugged at his lips, "how about doing it as a job?" He raised a brow, his eyes sparkling with calculated intent. "And I will pay you handsomely." My heart skipped a beat, unsure where this was going. "What are you talking about?" $100,000, Liam said casually, as though the amount was pocket change to him. "For 1 month." I froze, my heart jolting at the sheer magnitude of the number. I had never held that much money in my entire life. I barely scraped by, working myself to the bone just to survive. $100,000 could change everything. Liam's smirk deepened as he saw the hesitation flicker in my eyes. "I'll pay you right away," he continued, his voice like honey laced with temptation. "The moment you accept the job." I swallowed hard, my mind racing. He leaned in slightly, his tone dropping, making his offer sound like a challenge I couldn't refuse. "Your job would be simple. Stay close to him. Make him comfortable with you. Convince him to return to the pack. I'll give you more details after you accept." I opened my mouth to argue, but no words came out. "You have 1 hour to decide," he added, his tone final. Then, without waiting for a response, he turned and walked away. $100,000, 1 month. I didn't know whether to laugh, cry, or scream. All I could do was stare at the spot where he'd been, my heart pounding like a drum. The hour passed far too quickly. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring blankly at the clock on the wall. Each tick felt louder than the last, like it was mocking me. My mind spun with the implications of Liam's offer. $100,000. An amount that could pull me out of the endless cycle of working dead-end jobs just to survive. But it wasn't just the money that haunted me. It was Riven. Even now, the image of his transformation was burned into my mind. His glowing eyes, his claws, the rage that radiated off him like a storm. He didn't want me here. He didn't want me at all. Yet, somehow, the mark on my shoulder said otherwise, and that terrified me more than anything. I stood abruptly, pacing the small room. "This is insane," I muttered, running my hands through my hair. I should just leave, walk away, and never look back. But the reality wasn't that simple. I couldn't afford to leave. Not when Liam's offer was dangling in front of me like a lifeline. Still, the thought of staying, of willingly putting myself in the orbit of someone as dangerous and unpredictable as Riven, made my stomach churn. A soft knock at the door jolted me out of my thoughts. I turned, my heart leaping into my throat. For a moment, I thought it might be him, but when the door creaked open, it was Liam. "Time's up," he said simply, leaning casually against the doorframe. His golden eyes gleamed, sharp and calculating. "What's your decision?" "Oh," I hesitated, the words catching in my throat. I wanted to say no, to tell him to shove his offer and let me leave. But the weight of reality pressed down on me, smothering any resistance. Finally, I exhaled, my shoulders slumping. Fine," I said quietly. "I'll do it." Liam's smile widened, satisfaction lighting up his face. Smart choice. He stepped into the room, pulling out a phone from his pocket. "I'll wire the money to your account right now. Just give me your details." I blinked, taken aback by how quickly he moved. "You trust me to stick around after you pay me?" He chuckled, the sound low and amused. "Trust has nothing to do with it. You're bound to us now, Clara, whether you realize it or not." The weight of his words settled heavily on my chest. I gave him my account details, and within moments he told me it was done. I blinked, taken aback by how quickly he moved. "How do I know you actually sent the money?" I asked. "I don't have my phone with me or a laptop to check." Liam arched a brow, pulling out his phone. He swiped across the screen before turning it toward me, showing a "transfer complete" notification. Satisfied? I stared at the screen, the confirmation of the amount making my chest tighten. I swallowed hard and nodded, reluctantly accepting that this was real. The amount was too surreal to process, but I knew he wasn't lying. His confidence alone told me it was real. I swallowed hard. "So, what now?" "Now," he said, his expression turning serious, "you're going to get to know him. Slowly, carefully. He's volatile, but he's not a monster. Not entirely." I frowned, crossing my arms. "And if he doesn't want me around, what then?" Liam's gaze hardened, a flicker of something dangerous crossing his face. "Make him want you around. Use the maid thing I told you as an excuse. I know he doesn't like the sound of it, but you have to use it." The pressure in his voice was clear, and it sent a chill down my spine. I nodded reluctantly, the knot in my stomach tightening. "Good," Liam said, his smile returning. "You'll start tonight. We all have our meals together and we'll be in the dining area right after the kitchen. Be there." With that, he turned and left, leaving me alone once again. I sank onto the bed, my mind a whirlwind of thoughts. Tonight, dinner, with Riven. I wasn't ready, not even close, but I had no choice now. I was in too deep. I stood awkwardly at the entrance of the kitchen, watching the dining room across, my hands fidgeting at my sides. I walked towards the dining area. Liam was already seated, a glass of wine in his hand with a woman besides him. He smiled when he saw me, gesturing for me to sit. "Relax, Clara. You're not going to war." "Feels like I am," I muttered under my breath, but I forced myself to move. My footsteps echoed as I approached the table, taking a seat across from them. My eyes darted to the empty chair at the head of the table, my nerves intensifying. "He'll be here soon," Liam said, as if reading my thoughts. "Just remember what I said. Take it slow." Before I could respond, the heavy sound of boots echoed through. My heart leapt into my throat as Riven entered, his presence commanding and suffocating all at once. He didn't look at me as he approached the table, his movements stiff and guarded. He sat at the head of the table, his sharp blue eyes flicking briefly to mine before settling on Liam. "What is this?" he demanded, his voice low and gruff. Liam raised his glass, unbothered by Riven's tone. "Dinner. A chance to talk." Riven's gaze shifted to me, his expression unreadable. The tension in the room was palpable, and I forced myself to hold his gaze, even as every instinct screamed at me to look away. "Talk about what?" he asked, his voice dangerously calm. Liam leaned back in his chair, a sly smile on his face. "About moving forward. Together." Riven's jaw tightened, his hands clenching into fists on the table. "I have nothing to say to her." The sting of his words was sharp, but I swallowed it down, refusing to let him see how much it hurt. Instead, I squared my shoulders, meeting his glare. "Maybe not," I said quietly, my voice steady despite the tremor in my chest. "But I have things to say to you." His eyes narrowed, a flicker of surprise crossing his face. For a moment, the room was silent, the tension crackling like electricity. Then, slowly, he leaned back in his chair, his gaze never leaving mine. "Fine," he said, his tone a challenge. "Let's hear it." Before I could respond, an older woman entered, carrying plates of food. She moved with practiced ease, setting a plate in front of Riven, then Liam, the woman next to him, and finally me, before taking a seat herself. "Thank you, Sheba," Riven said, his tone softer than I'd expected. It caught me off guard. Sheba smiled warmly. "Bon appetit," she said before picking up her own fork. I looked down at my plate. Beef stroganoff. It smelled good, the creamy sauce and tender beef making my stomach growl. I grabbed my fork, eager to dig in, but Riven's voice interrupted me. "I'm still waiting for what you had to say." "Can I first enjoy my food?" I said. Riven didn't answer. Instead, he pushed back his chair, the legs scraping loudly against the floor. Without sparing another glance at anyone, he rose and walked toward the door. "I'm stepping out," he muttered, his voice clipped and low. I froze, my fork suspended mid-air as his boots thudded against the floor, the sound fading until it was replaced by silence. Well?" Liam's voice cut through the quiet, drawing my attention. He leaned forward, his golden eyes sharp as they pinned me in place. "Go after him." I blinked at him, startled. "What? Why?" "Because you need to start somewhere," he said, his tone insistent. "He won't come to you, Clara. You have to meet him halfway." I hesitated, my fingers tightening around the fork. "You're being too pushy," I muttered, setting the utensil down with a soft clink. "You gave me the money. I have time. Why are you rushing this?" Liam's expression darkened, a flicker of annoyance crossing his face. "Because the longer you wait, the worse it'll get. Trust me." I frowned, debating whether to argue, but the intensity in his gaze made my resolve falter. With a reluctant nod, I pushed my chair back and stood. "Fine, I'll go." The air outside bit into my skin as I stepped into the hallway, leaving the warmth of the dining room behind. My footsteps echoed as I followed the fading sound of Riven's boots. I didn't know what I was doing, following him like a damn moth to a flame, but something in me wouldn't let him walk away this time. I found him at the edge of the compound, leaning against a stone pillar like the night owed him a favor. His back was to me, the muscles beneath his shirt pulled tight like coiled wire. "I'm not your enemy," I said softly. Silence. Not even a twitch. I should have walked away. I should have let the wolf sulk in his shadows. But I didn't. "I'm trying here, Riven. I didn't ask for this mark. I didn't ask for any of this. But you bit me. You marked me. And now I feel you in my damn head." Still no answer. I stepped closer. Big mistake. He turned in a flash, pinning me against the pillar before I could blink. One hand pressed beside my head, the other curling lightly around my throat. Not hard enough to hurt. just enough to make me forget how to breathe. His scent hit me all at once, cedar, wild earth, and smoke. His voice dropped, velvet-wrapped steel. You don't want to feel me, Clara. I already do, I whispered. His jaw clenched, eyes glowing that same haunting blue. You think this is some fairy tale bond? That I'm going to fall at your feet because fate decided to play a cruel joke on us? No, I said, voice shaking. But I think you're scared. Of me. Of what this might mean. His fingers tightened slightly. You think I'm scared of a human girl with soft hands and no claws? He growled. I think you're scared of needing something again, I said. That hit. His entire body stilled, like I'd driven a knife through bone. He released me. Turned away. I didn't need you, he said coldly. That night was a mistake. Then why haven't you left? I shot back. Why not run like you always do? He didn't answer. But the twitch in his jaw said everything. You feel it too, I breathed. I feel cursed, he spat. The silence between us pulsed. Then he said it, quietly, so bitter it burned. He turned to me fully, jaw tense, eyes burning like frostbitten fire. But instead of answering, instead of letting me in like the crack I thought I saw, he smirked. Not a nice one. It was sharp, taunting, the kind of smile a man wears to cover 1,000 scars. You think this is something real? He said. That one night together means something? I flinched, but he didn't stop. You're just another warm body, Clara. Another mistake I should have walked away from. I don't do strings. I don't do fate. I opened my mouth, but he took a step back. Already done with me. Don't follow me again, he said coldly. Next time, I won't be nice. He turned his back like I was dust on his boot. The gravel crunched beneath his boots as he stalked toward the parked car. I watched him slide into the driver's seat, slam the door, and drive off. No hesitation, no glance in the mirror. Just like that, he was gone. And for the first time since I got here, I felt truly, utterly alone. The night swallowed me whole. Even the stars above looked like they were watching with pity, distant and cold. I didn't cry, not because I was strong, but because I was numb, like my insides had turned to ash. I stayed there, leaning against the pillar, gripping the edge where his hand had been like it might still hold the heat of him. But it didn't. It was just stone. Cold, dead stone. What the hell was I doing? Chasing a man who clearly wanted nothing to do with me. A man who marked me without warning and then spent every moment since trying to erase it. I wrapped my arms around myself, the wind slicing across my skin like it had teeth. Still, I didn't move. I couldn't. Something about the way he'd looked at me, like I was the threat. Like I could ruin him. That scared me more than anything he'd said. Because deep down, I knew he wasn't wrong. I was soft. But that didn't mean I was weak. Eventually, my legs moved on their own, back inside, back through the quiet hallways that suddenly felt more like a tomb than a sanctuary. Liam was still at the table when I returned, his plate half finished, his jaw tight. He looked up as I entered, and I didn't even try to hide the emptiness on my face. I take it that didn't go well, he said. I didn't answer. I sat down instead, picked up the fork, pushed food around like it mattered. It didn't. Nothing did. Liam watched me for a moment, then exhaled slowly. He's not good at being wanted, Clara. Never has been. Yeah, well, he could have fooled me, I muttered, stabbing a piece of bread until it crumbled. He's really good at pretending he doesn't need anyone. He's not pretending. I looked up, startled by the weight in Liam's voice. He leaned back, arms crossed, his golden eyes more serious than I'd ever seen. Riven's been through hell, more than you know. You think you're the only one hurting? You think you're the only one carrying scars? I didn't ask for this. I whispered, hating how small I sounded. Neither did he, Liam shot back. But now you're tied together, whether either of you like it or not. And I'm telling you, if you give up on him now, he'll never come back. I swallowed hard. I'm not the one who left, I said, standing. He made his choice. Liam didn't stop me as I walked away. But his words chased me down the corridor. If you give up on him now, he'll never come back. I collapsed onto the bed in my room, barely bothering to strip off my clothes. The room smelled like jasmine and oud, comfort and memories I didn't have. My fingers ghosted over the spot on my neck where he bit me. I hated that I still felt warmth there. Hated that my body remembered him even when he treated me like trash. A mark is more than skin. It threads through blood and bone, through every dream, every heartbeat. And tonight, my dreams were full of him. His hands, his voice, the way his gaze burned through me like I belonged to him. I didn't know when I fell asleep. But when I woke, it was too loud, rhythmic banging. No, not banging like a door being knocked. The other kind. I sat upright fast, my hair a wild halo of confusion, ears adjusting to the unmistakable sounds of something fleshier slamming against something else. A high-pitched moan echoed through the hallway. You've got to be kidding me, I groaned, dragging a hand down my face. I squinted toward the door like maybe I'd hallucinated it, but no. The sounds were real. And getting louder. Oh, for fuck's sake! I threw the blanket off and marched to the door, yanking it open. There I stood, just a girl in sleep shorts and a tank top, in the dimly lit hallway of a goddamn werewolf compound, frozen by the symphony of sex echoing from one of the rooms. Don't they know I'm inside too? I hissed, staring at the wall like it had personally betrayed me. A particularly loud moan, followed by a male grunt, rattled the hallway. Seriously? I scowled. Can I not get one night without trauma? Still groggy and grumpy, I padded toward the stairs, muttering under my breath. I needed water, or vodka. But I'd settle for water before I murdered someone. I made it about 4 steps before click. A door opened somewhere below, and heavy footsteps echoed up the staircase. Then I saw him. Riven. Emerging from the lower floor like some storm-wrecked warrior returning from the dead. I froze mid-stride. He smelled like gasoline, dried blood, and iron. His shirt was half-ripped, his face streaked with grime and something dark that might have been blood or mud, or both. His boots were caked in filth, and one sleeve was torn, revealing a gash down his arm that was already crusted over. He looked like war personified. Did he just get home? And for some god-awful reason, my brain whispered the word home. I blinked, then scoffed at myself. You've really lost your damn mind, I muttered. Riven paused. Excuse me? I snapped my head toward him, eyes wide. Oh, not you. I was talking to myself. In here. I jabbed a finger at my temple like I was trying to unscrew my own brain. This part, totally fried, don't mind me. He stared, unamused. God, he smelled like hellfire and destruction and still managed to look like sin on legs. I cleared my throat. You smell like roadkill and regret. Want me to call an exorcist or just a hose? Nothing. No smirk. No glare. He just brushed past me like I was the wind. Typical. Then he stopped. Right in front of that door, the one where the symphony of moans was still giving a damn concert. He raised his fist once, just once, and pounded. Not hard, not loud. Just enough to make the whole hallway tense. We need to talk, he said flatly. Silence. Then a muffled shuffle. And the door cracked open. Liam stepped out. Completely, fucking, naked. Sweaty. Flushed. And his little Liam was standing proud like a fucking salute. I gasped and spun around so fast I nearly gave myself whiplash. Oh, come on, I squeaked. You couldn't grab a towel? Or a curtain? Hell, a leaf. I turned to storm downstairs, fully intending to erase my entire memory with a bottle of bleach and holy water. But I tripped on the top step. And fell. All the way down. I hit the floor with a thud that knocked the air from my lungs. Fuck! I groaned, clutching my elbow and dignity. Above me I heard footsteps and voices. Then Liam, still very naked, leaned over the railing, smirking with his entire situation dangling above. He pointed straight down at me and said, "Yeah, exactly. Fuck." I wheezed. And just when I thought the moment couldn't get more humiliating, Riven cast one last unreadable look down at me. And turned. Without a word. He walked away. Just like that. Leaving me flat on my back, bruised and surrounded by the sound of Liam's laughter echoing off the damn walls. I lay there on the cold floor, staring up at the ceiling, wondering how the hell my life had turned into a bad soap opera with werewolves, naked egos, and bruised tailbones. But it wasn't the fall that hurt. It was his silence. Riven didn't ask if I was okay. Didn't even blink. He just walked away like I was a pebble on his path. And maybe that's what finally broke something in me. Because as I pulled myself up, teeth clenched against the sting in my back, I made a silent vow. Next time he looked at me like I was nothing, I'd make sure he never forgot who the hell I was.
Every part of me, it longs for you in every way, so deep and true, physically, mentally. My heart is yours, my soul whispers your name forevermore. Whether you love me or hate me, I wanna be your only